What happens when a newly hired cashier steps up to help a struggling customer, only to discover that customer runs the entire company? Victor Callahan stood outside the 15th location of his fast-growing grocery store chain, tugging the faded baseball cap lower over his brow. His beard had grown out just enough to make him unrecognizable, and the old hoodie and worn jeans completed the look. No one would guess he was the founder and CEO of the very store he was about to walk into. 15 stores in 8 years. Victor had built this from the trunk of his beat-up truck, selling produce door to door before opening his first shop. Now he had over 300 employees and a district manager overseeing each location. He trusted his people, but lately, that trust had been shaken. 3 complaints in 2 weeks. Not from customers, but from 2 former employees and 1 longtime supplier, each with the same concern. Store 15 had changed. Morale was down. A good cashier had quit after 2 weeks, another said she'd been pushed out, and the supplier claimed he was being shorted payments. Victor had never met the current staff at this location personally. He'd been too busy expanding, and that, he realized, was a mistake. So today he was going in undercover not as a worker but as a customer. No clipboard, no camera crew, just a man with a shopping list and his eyes open. Inside, the store looked fine at first glance. Clean aisles, organized shelves, but something felt off. No greetings. No eye contact. A middle-aged manager in a red polo barked orders to a stock boy without even looking at him. Victor grabbed a basket and wandered toward the checkout lanes. Only 2 lanes were open and the lines were long. He waited, listening. The cashier in lane 2, a young woman with brown curls pulled back into a bun, was doing her best to move quickly. Her name tag read, Jenna Knoll, trainee. Sorry for the wait, she told the older man in front of Victor. It's my 3rd day and we're short-staffed. No worries, kid, the man said with a tired smile. You're doing just fine. When it was Victor's turn, he placed a few basic items on the belt: bread, milk, some fruit, and a pack of granola bars. He pulled out his old wallet and froze. He'd taken out his cards for the disguise, only a few small bills and coins remained. Shoot, he muttered, counting. I'm a couple bucks short. No problem, Jenna said quickly, already reaching into her apron pocket. I got it. Victor blinked. Wait, what? She handed over 3 crumpled ones and smiled. I know it's not much, but I'd rather you eat than go without. It's just groceries. Victor stared at her for a moment, no hesitation, no attitude, just kindness. You sure? He asked. Yeah, Jenna said. You looked like you needed a hand, he nodded, humbled. Thank you, she waved it off. Just don't tell the manager, he'd probably flip. That caught Victor's attention. Why? Jenna leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. He's not a fan of slowing things down for people. He told me on my first day, we're not a charity. You give people an inch, they'll rob you blind. Victor's jaw tightened. That's a hell of a thing to say. Tell me about it, Jenna muttered, scanning the last item. He's been on my back since I started. I get it, I'm new. But I'm not stupid. Victor took his bag and gave her a quiet nod. Thanks again, Jenna, really? She smiled, a little tired but genuine. Take care. He walked out slowly, heart pounding. She didn't know who he was. She didn't recognize him. Of course she didn't. How could she? He'd never been to this store in person. The staff only saw district managers or HR reps, not the founder, not the man who'd once stocked shelves himself. Outside, Victor sat in his car and took a breath. This wasn't just about a few complaints anymore. That girl had just paid for his groceries. A trainee, probably earning barely above minimum wage, and she was afraid of her manager. He had to see more. The next day, Victor returned. This time he stayed longer, watching from the cafe area near the front. He saw Jenna get chewed out by the red shirt manager Greg, according to his tag for taking too long with a customer in a wheelchair. He watched Greg roll his eyes as an elderly woman asked for help reading a label. And he heard him tell another cashier, if they can't afford food, they shouldn't be in here. Victor clenched his fists. He stayed late. Around closing time, he saw Jenna stacking baskets near the front. Greg passed by without offering help. Another worker, a quiet stalker named Lewis, was mopping up a spill alone while two other employees scrolled on their phones. This wasn't just bad management. This was a culture problem. Victor knew what had to be done. He returned to his hotel room and made some calls. First to the district manager. Then to HR. He told them not to mention anything yet. Not until he went back one more time. The next morning he showed up in a suit. He walked straight to the manager's office. Greg looked up from his desk, confused. "Can I help you?" Victor shut the door. "You don't know me," he said, pulling off the cap. "But I know you and I own this store. My name is Victor Callahan." Greg blinked. "Wait, what? You're the founder, the CEO, and I've been watching." Greg stood up slowly, face pale. Victor's voice was calm but sharp. "We're going to have a talk, and after that you'll hand in your keys because you're done here." Greg opened his mouth, but Victor held up a hand. "Save it." He walked out and found Jenna up front, helping a customer carry bags. "Jenna," he said. She turned, surprised to see the man she'd helped 2 days ago now in a sharp suit, clean-shaven and standing tall. "Remember me?" she blinked. "Yeah, wait, what's going on?" "I'm not just a customer," he said. "I'm Victor Callahan. I built these stores." "And I saw what you did." Jenna went pale. I didn't mean to break any rules. You did everything right," Victor said, "and I'm here to fix what's broken." The office door clicked shut behind Victor. Outside, the store bustled with the early morning crowd, parents wrangling toddlers, retirees comparing prices, workers grabbing lunch on their breaks, but inside, the air was still. Greg remained seated, his shoulders stiff, eyes flicking between Victor and the report he'd been pretending to read. "You're not going to explain yourself?" Victor asked. Greg laced his fingers together and leaned back slowly. "I didn't think I needed to. I run this store by the book. Numbers are up. Inventory shrinks the lowest in the district. I hit my targets." Victor nodded once. "And what about the people under you?" "I keep them in line." Victor studied him. "That's the problem." Greg's mouth pulled tight. "You want a store that runs soft. You'll lose control. You give an inch, they take a mile." "I've seen it." Victor walked to the small window and looked out toward the front of the store. Jenna was helping a young boy pick out a piece of fruit, crouching down to his level as he pointed at the bins. She laughed at something he said, her posture relaxed. Victor said nothing for a moment, then turned. "I watched you ignore a customer who asked for help yesterday. I saw you walk past an employee who was clearly overwhelmed. You don't lead here, you just enforce." Greg stood. "I don't have time to babysit. I've got this place running efficiently, and I don't need someone who's never worked this floor telling me how to do my job." Victor's voice was quiet. "I've scrubbed floors in this store before it had a roof. I've stocked shelves until 2 in the morning and slept in my truck out back. So don't tell me what I know." Greg's jaw clenched. "So what now? You fire me for being too strict." "I'm replacing you because you treat people like problems to manage instead of people to lead. You're done here. HR will walk you through your severance." Victor opened the door. Greg didn't follow. As Victor stepped into the hallway, a younger man in a navy vest passed by, pushing a dolly with stacked boxes of cereal. He gave a quick nod but didn't stop. Victor paused and turned. "Hey, what's your name?" The man looked back, cautious. "Illy, you've been here long." "Almost 2 years." Victor motioned toward the break room. "You got a moment?" Illy hesitated, then leaned the dolly against the wall and followed him. Inside the break room, the lights flickered overhead. One of the chairs at the table had a broken leg, propped up unevenly. A vending machine buzzed in the corner, mostly empty. Victor sat. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to understand what it's been like working here." Illy rubbed the back of his neck. "That depends. You looking for the version people give when they're trying to keep their shifts, or the real one?" "The real one," Illy exhaled. "It used to be decent. Before Greg took over, there was this older woman running the place, Marcia. She made sure we had coverage, rotated shifts fairly, let us grab something to eat if we stayed late. After she left, everything tightened. Schedules got cut. He stopped approving requests for extra hours. Said if we wanted more time, we had to earn it. But then he'd give those hours to the same 2 people every week, the ones who kept their heads down and didn't question anything. Victor leaned forward. Why didn't anyone speak up? Ellie shrugged. To who? District manager shows up once a month and Greg's always on his best behavior. And if someone complains, he finds a reason to cut their hours the next week. No one says it out loud, but we all know how it works. Victor watched him carefully. What would you change if you were in charge? Ellie chuckled. Me, I'm just trying to keep rent paid. Still, humor me, Ellie thought for a moment. I'd bring back the team meetings. Marcia used to hold them every Friday morning. We'd talk about what was working, who needed help. That stopped. Now everything's just texts and schedules taped to the back wall. Victor nodded. Anything else? Yeah, I'd stop pretending people are disposable. Jenna's only been here a few days and she's already got more heart than most of us. But she's getting burned out, you can see it. Victor stood. Thanks, Ellie, that helps. As he left the break room, he passed the employee schedule pinned crookedly to the bulletin board. One name had been crossed out in red ink. Another had a handwritten note, "Do not call unreliable." Victor took out his phone and snapped a picture. Outside, near the loading dock, he found Louis, the quiet stalker he'd seen cleaning alone the day before. He was organizing crates of produce, working quickly and methodically. Victor approached. Mind if I ask you something? Louis looked up, startled. Sure. I'm Victor. I run the company, Louis blinked. Seriously, Victor smiled. Yeah, I'm not here to put anyone on the spot, I just want to know how you're doing. Louis glanced around. I mean, I'm good, I like working, keeps me busy. You ever get help back here? Sometimes. Usually not. Victor looked at the crates. You've got a good system, you do all this alone, Louis nodded. Most days. You like it here, Louis paused. I like the work, I don't like feeling invisible. Victor nodded slowly. That's fair. He spent the next hour walking the store, quietly watching how things ran. He noticed that customers avoided asking questions, that no one lingered, that the music overhead was always just slightly too loud, like it was trying to fill silence no one wanted to break. When he finally approached Jenna, she was wiping down a belt at register 3. Got a minute? He asked. She looked up, wary. Sure. Victor gestured toward the front office. They walked together and he held the door open for her. Inside, he motioned for her to sit. You're not in trouble, he said. I just want to talk, she relaxed slightly. Okay. I saw what you did the other day, not just with me, with others. She looked away. I just try to do the right thing. I know, that's why I want to ask, what do you need from us? Jenna hesitated. Honestly. A little trust, and maybe a chance to grow. I've worked retail before. I took this job because I thought maybe it'd be different, but when I asked about training, I got brushed off. When I tried to help a customer who didn't speak English well, I got told to keep the line moving. I want to work somewhere that doesn't punish you for caring. Victor nodded. Would you stay if things changed, if I thought it was real? It will be. He stood and offered her his hand. I want your help rebuilding this place, not just as a cashier. Her eyes widened. What are you saying? I'm promoting you to assistant floor lead. Starting now, you'll help shape what this store becomes. She stared at him. I've only been here a week. And I've only been paying attention for 3 days. We both have some catching up to do. Victor walked back out to the floor with her, then called a brief huddle with the entire staff. They gathered, uncertain. Ellie stood near the back. Louis paused at the end of an aisle. A few part-timers hung by the registers. Victor raised his voice just enough to carry. Some of you know who I am. For those who don't, I'm Victor Callahan. I built these stores from scratch and I've been watching this one closely. He let the silence settle. I saw people working hard without recognition. I saw others coasting while someone else cleaned up their mess. That ends now. I've made staffing changes and I'm making more. You'll see new leadership here. Ones who listen, who care. He looked at Jenna. This store's going to be different. And I hope you'll help us make it better. He didn't wait for applause. He didn't need a performance. He just wanted them to believe it. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like they just might. Jenna stepped into the back office again, this time not as a trainee asked to stay late and wipe down registers, but as someone with a new title and a dozen questions. Victor had asked her to meet him after the store closed. She had spent the rest of the shift uncertain whether she was walking into an opportunity or a pile of expectations no one had warned her about. Victor was already inside when she arrived. He wasn't sitting behind the desk like Greg used to. He was standing near the whiteboard, dry erase marker in hand, drawing a rough layout of the store's front half. "I'm not great at diagrams," he said without turning. "But I figured we should probably map out what needs changing before we start moving things around." She crossed her arms. "So what exactly do you want me to do?" He set the marker down and faced her. "You're not managing people yet. That'll come if you want it. Right now, I need you to help me understand the disconnect between the way this store runs and the way it should." "That's a long list." "Then we'll start small." She leaned against the wall. "All right, first, training. I got handed a binder on my first day and told to read it in the break room. Nobody ever checked if I understood any of it. I've worked registers before, but if I hadn't, I would have been guessing." Victor nodded slowly. "What else?" "The schedule. It's posted with barely 2 days' notice. I've seen people show up just to find out their shift was canceled." He picked the marker back up and jotted a note beside the drawing, and the whole place feels tense, like everyone's waiting for something to go wrong. It's not just about being busy, it's the way people flinch when they hear Greg's voice. Even when he wasn't yelling, he was sharp, like everything someone did was wasting his time. Victor set the marker down again. "You ever work somewhere that handled those things better?" "Yeah. There was this small bookstore I worked at during college. The owner was around a lot. He'd ask how we were doing. Not in a fake way, he actually wanted to know. He'd bring in snacks if we had to stay late. And if someone made a mistake, he'd walk them through how to fix it instead of making them feel like an idiot." "Did that place make money?" "Enough. It wasn't fancy, but it had regulars. People trusted it." Victor nodded again and turned to the whiteboard. "Okay, let's fix one thing at a time." "Training first. How would you do it?" She blinked. "You're asking me, you're the one who lived through it." "I'd start with a walkthrough, show people how the store flows, then shadow someone for a full shift. Get a feel for how to handle problems before they're alone at a register." "Who'd you pick to do the shadowing?" She hesitated. "Illy, he doesn't talk much, but he's steady, he doesn't panic." Victor looked surprised for a second, then nodded. "Interesting. I was thinking the same." He stepped away from the board and motioned to the hallway. "Come with me." They walked past the break room, down the short corridor that led to the stock area. Most of the lights were off except one over a workstation near the loading dock. Lewis was there, sorting through a stack of invoices, a pencil stuck behind his ear. Victor called out quietly. "You always stay this late." Lewis looked up. "Just wanted to finish the inventory before tomorrow's delivery." Victor stepped closer. "You ever trained anyone before?" Lewis shook his head. "No, I just do my part." Victor glanced at Jenna. "You think he could?" She nodded. "Yeah, he's quiet, not passive. There's a difference." Victor looked back at Lewis. "Would you be willing to help us rebuild the training process?" Lewis blinked. "Me, you've got consistency and a system. We need that." "I'd need time to figure out how to explain what I do." "That's fine. Take a couple days, talk to Jenna, build something together." Lewis nodded slowly. "All right." They left him to his work and returned to the front register area. Victor leaned against a counter. "I don't want to just replace bad management with more layers of rules. I want people to care because they're invested, not because they're scared." Jenna looked around the empty store. "Then you'll need to start by showing them you mean it. They've heard promises before. They've seen people come in with new titles and disappear a week later." Victor didn't respond for a moment. Then he walked behind the customer service counter and pulled out a folder from the locked drawer. He handed it to her. She opened it and found a printed survey. Not the usual kind with vague questions and multiple choice boxes. Each page had a single prompt at the top. What's something that used to work here but doesn't anymore? What would make you want to stay for the next year? Who do you trust here, and why? Victor said, "I had these printed this morning. I want every employee to fill one out anonymously. No names, no handwriting checks. I'm not looking for dirt, I'm looking for patterns. She flipped through a few pages. This is actually smart. I'll collect them myself, he said. No managers involved. They stood in silence for a few seconds, listening to the low hum of the store's lights. Then she said, "You know they're going to test you. I expect that. Some of them will push back just to see if you're serious," he nodded. "Good, let them." She closed the folder. "You sure you want me on this?" "I'm still figuring out where the mop buckets are." "You're the first person in this building who acted like the place mattered. That counts more than experience." She didn't smile, but her posture shifted, slightly less guarded. Victor glanced at the clock. "Go home." "You've earned it." As she headed toward the back to grab her things, he stayed behind and turned off the last row of lights. The next morning came with a different rhythm. By the time the store opened, Victor had already met with the regional HR director in a borrowed office down the block. They'd gone through Greg's employee records, his scheduling practices, and every formal complaint that had been logged in the last 3 months. A pattern emerged, precise on paper but brittle in execution. It lacked humanity. Back at the store, Jenna found Lee by the coffee machine with 2 cups in hand. He offered her one without a word. She took it, then nodded toward the breakroom door. "We're starting something today," she said. Lee raised an eyebrow. "Training's changing." "And so is how we run things." He didn't say anything, just followed her into the room. Lewis was already there, flipping through a notepad. Victor joined them a few minutes later and set a large envelope on the center table. "These are the surveys, one for each person. I want them back by tomorrow night." He looked at each of them. "You 3 are the start, you'll shape what comes next." Jenna tapped the envelope. "What if people don't fill them out?" "They will. If they don't, we'll know they've already checked out. And then we'll decide how to move forward." Lewis asked, "What about the people who were always on Greg's side?" "We don't punish loyalty," Victor said. "We outgrow it." Lee finally spoke. "You really think this place can change?" Victor gave a quiet nod. "Not overnight. But if we do this right, this store becomes the model." Jenna leaned back. "Guess we better get it right then." Victor smiled just briefly. "That's the plan." The first real test came 48 hours later. Victor was reviewing the completed surveys in the empty upstairs office above the store, the one typically used for district audits, but now converted into a quiet space where he could work unnoticed. Most of the employees had responded. Some wrote only a few words. Others filled the entire page. But there was one that stopped him cold. It was unsigned like the rest, but the handwriting was precise. The answers weren't angry, they were surgical. Detailed timelines of shift changes that had left registers understaffed. Notes about unsafe backroom stacking practices that hadn't been corrected. A list of employees who, according to the writer, had been rewarded for compliance, not competence. Near the bottom, it read, "We don't need more slogans about culture. We need to stop pretending fear is discipline." Victor folded the paper neatly and placed it in a separate pile. He hadn't expected this level of self-awareness from the team, but it confirmed what he already suspected. There were people here who saw everything and said nothing until now. Downstairs, the midday lull was setting in. Jenna stood near the customer service counter, going over a returns log when a woman in her late 40s approached. Her name tag read Tricia, and she was one of the employees who'd been working under Greg's management for over a year. "You got a minute?" Tricia asked. Jenna closed the logbook. "Sure." Tricia crossed her arms. "So, what's this new setup supposed to be? You're a trainee one day and now you're handing out surveys and calling team huddles." Jenna kept her voice steady. "I was asked to help fix some broken processes. I'm not here to boss anyone around. Still feels like a fast climb." "I get that. But you've been here longer. If you see something I'm missing, I want to hear it." Tricia didn't respond right away. Then, "The last time someone said that, the next week I lost my Saturday shifts. I'm not Greg." Tricia's expression didn't soften. "We'll see." Jenna didn't push further. She returned to her paperwork and let the silence stand. Across the store, Lewis was reconfiguring the produce section, shifting items that used to sit too close to the floor up to eye level. He'd marked the best sellers with temporary signs explaining where they were sourced from, something Victor had encouraged after a brief conversation about supply transparency. Ellie joined him, carrying a roll of price tags under one arm. "You think anyone's going to notice this stuff?" Ellie asked. "They'll notice if we stop doing it," Lewis said, not looking up. "Fair." Ellie crouched to replace a label, then stood. "You know Tricia's testing Jenna, right?" "I figured." "You think she'll hold?" Lewis wiped his hands on a towel. "She held when no one else did." "That usually means something." In the upstairs office, Victor was making calls, not to corporate but to vendors. The small regional egg supplier who'd recently stopped delivering, a family-run bakery that had pulled out the month before. He asked each one the same thing: what changed? The answers overlapped: late payments, unreturned calls, a new tone from the store's management that implied they were replaceable. Victor thanked them, made quiet apologies, and promised to personally ensure things were corrected. Then he called the company's accounts payable team and had the outstanding balances paid by end of day. Later that afternoon, he called Jenna and Lewis into the office. "I want to bring back supplier visibility," Victor said. "We've drifted away from the people who helped us start." "It's time to reverse that," Lewis leaned forward. "How?" "I'm setting up a local vendor spotlight next month. Every week we'll feature one supplier in store, signage, samples, the works. But here's the catch: they'll need to feel welcome again. That starts here." Jenna nodded. "I can take that on." "Good. You'll coordinate directly with them. No middle managers," Lewis added. "We'll need someone to train the rest of the team on how to talk about the products." "Exactly." By the end of the week, the store looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. The mood had shifted, not dramatically, but enough. Staff began arriving a few minutes earlier. Jenna caught employees lingering near the break room after clocking out, discussing how to fix a display or suggesting better signage for the cleaning aisle. Small things, but real. Victor knew it was working when the assistant manager from another location stopped by and said, "I don't know what you're doing here, but half your crew actually looks like they want to be here." Still, not everyone was on board. One evening, Tricia was caught snapping at a new hire in front of customers. Jenna stepped in immediately, asking to speak with her in the back. When they were alone, Jenna kept her tone clear. "That's not how we handle people here." Tricia didn't apologize. He asked the same question 3 times. "I don't have time to babysit." "You don't have to babysit, but you do have to respect the people on your team." Tricia crossed her arms. "I've been here longer than anyone still standing. I've seen this place go through 3 rounds of new leadership, and every time it ends the same way. People burn out and someone else gets promoted." Jenna didn't flinch. "Then help make this one different." Tricia didn't answer. But the next shift, she showed the new hire how to restock the freezer without being asked. 1 week later, Victor gathered the entire team after closing. They stood near the registers, some leaning on carts, others sitting on the counters. No one pulled out their phone. Victor held a folder in one hand. "I've read every survey. I've spoken with half the vendors who stopped delivering here. I've gone through the scheduling patterns for the last 6 months, and here's what I know: this store didn't fail because of bad luck or bad customers. It failed because we stopped listening." He looked around the group. "But we've started again. And because of that, this store is no longer under review." There were murmurs, quiet but surprised. "What that means," Victor continued, "is that we're not cutting hours, we're not closing. And we're not replacing anyone who wants to be part of this new direction." He turned to Jenna. "She's not a placeholder. She's your new operations lead. She earned that because she showed up when it counted, not when it was easy, when it was uncomfortable." Then to Lewis. "He's going to be designing the new onboarding process for every new hire, not just here, across the region. Because he's the only person I've met who never assumed his job didn't matter." Finally, to Ellie. "And this guy, starting next week, he'll be training our new hires. Because it turns out quiet consistency builds more trust than a clipboard ever did." Victor set the folder down. If you want out, no hard feelings. If you want in, we'll give you something worth staying for. No one moved. No one walked away. The next morning, Jenna found a note taped to her locker. No name, just a sentence written in neat block letters. You made me believe it could work. I'm staying. She folded it once and slid it into her pocket. And for the first time since she started, she walked onto the floor not wondering if she'd be blamed for something, but knowing she was building something better.